Welcome to Tomorrow Never Knows with me, Bob Wilson, and Sir Warren Brown. Our special guest is James Lee Stanley. James has 3 CDs made with Monkey star Peter Tork. He has a new one coming out too. Music's going to abound in the Beatles Kingdom. And James Lee will then come on and tell us after he plays about his new CD and where you can get it. But first, a word from our sponsor. Beatles Magazine is a publication with 370 plus million visitors in all their pages, read by thousands of fans around the world every day. Beatles news is updated daily, 24 hours, audio, video, photos, interviews, contests, additional materials, and more. So follow Beatles Magazine, the most complete online coverage, 24 hours a day and 8 days a week. All right, so welcome. I turn it over to James Lee Stanley.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for having me, man. Pleasure.
And as we start, in these tough times, how can we support musicians like you with all the stuff that's going on?
It's certainly a trying time, and not only do musicians need support, but we all need support. A lot of people aren't working that are usually working, and a lot of places are closed that are usually open. But if in fact you are working and you do have some income, some extra income, the way you can help musicians is to, when we do these live concerts on the air, you can contribute to our fund, like a tip jar, like we used to do in basket houses in New York 50 years ago. You can do that, or you can go to the websites and you can pick up CDs. There's not going to be any live shows, you can't do that. But merchandise and CDs, if you can do that, and if you have all the CDs of your favorite artist, one of the things that people don't seem to realize that they can do is to buy another copy and give it to somebody that may not know that music. So I recommend that if you can swing it. And if you can't, I recommend you come and listen to music anyhow, because even live music streaming on the internet and being rebroadcast as we're doing is still, some solace and some joy and some help for each other, So I'm going to start out with a couple of tunes from my brand new CD, Without Susie. This first tune is a very, very folky thing I wrote because, in fact, only the acoustic radio stations are playing what I do right now. And so I had to accommodate that by coming up with this tune. This is a song that was actually inspired by some friends of mine in Nova Scotia who won a contest that my label put on. And they got to have a song written by me about anything they wanted. And they had an acoustic house concert series, actually not a house concert, an acoustic series in a theater called Acoustic Roots. And they said, can you write a song called Acoustic Roots, or at least have acoustic roots in it? And I said, sure. So this is it. This is called Every Highway. Every highway is going somewhere. They once said all roads lead to Rome. Now every byway's been connected, and I've never felt so far from home. Last night I sat around a campfire, silver stars clear in the sky, and sang a song with fond companions. All our voices rising high. If you're still, you can hear it. It's just behind the shadow of the wind. Whispers to you as you drift to sleep. Dreams the way all things begin. acoustic roots across the heartland. They're a melody so sweet. Sights and sounds, they will surround you. Mystery waits on every street. 'Cause every highway's got acoustic roots. Started with a siren song. See some place that you have never seen, or find somewhere you can belong. Every time you can hear it, it's just behind the shadow of the wind. Journey calls you as you drift to sleep. One step's the way they all begin. A dream's the way all things begin. Every highway, every highway, every highway. Now every highway's got a warning. Go back, you're going the wrong way. Not head through a street that end one way. Hey, are you gonna believe all that they say? The path to follow, it's within you. It's somewhere there inside your heart. And you can trace it if you have the will. Believe your dreams, that's how it starts. Every highway is going somewhere. They once said all roads lead to Rome, but every byway is just another which way you turn might lead you. Every highway, every highway.
Wow, that was a really good song. I really enjoyed that.
Me
Good,
too.
thanks, Warren. Yeah, it was
Very nice, James.
right. I had to double up on that tag at the end because I didn't like the way I played it the first time.
That was great. That's the best song I heard in a while.
Oh, thanks. That's the opening cut off of Without Susie. I did this. It's funny. This album I did up here in the mountain. I live up on top of a mountain outside of a little town called Tehachapi, about 2.5 hours from Los Angeles, and consequently, I don't get the people dropping by. I used to have, Timothy Stritt from the Eagles or Stephen Bishop or Paul Barrera from Little People. They just would come over, Lawrence Juber, and just play something. But now they're all hours away, so I ended up playing everything on this album. But I had plenty of time up here in the mountain. I did it over about 2 years, I guess.
Wow,
And
that's
yeah.
real nice place you have there, and I like your studio. You got
Oh, and it's a very soothing, nurturing space I've created here. I'm pretty blessed, man. I'm pretty blessed. To have to spend my life making music it's a ridiculously wonderful blessing. I don't know how many people get to do that compared to how many people want to do it.
That's not many, that's for sure.
Yeah, I know that. I was talking to Timothy Schmidt, and he said, James, I'm just so ridiculously blessed. He's the bass player in the Eagles, and he said, I can't believe that my life has been so kind to me. You know, he's a great dude, and he's still very grateful. I think that's important when you get the blessing to recognize that there's more luck than anything else that goes into it. You know, no matter how much we practice or how much hard we work, you know, luck is what does it, and we've both been pretty lucky. You know, I mean, I've made 34 albums, man. You know.
Yeah, that is great.
You know, it's so fun. Let me do another tune.
All right.
This is another tune off of Without Susie. This is called "Hey, Look at You." Let's see. Yeah, there it is. Make sure that thing is right. I've got these pedals down here that I use to change the sound, and I've got a little looping box that does actual recording, so that I'm going to be able to record something during this song, and then I'll play something else over top of that for the fun of it. This is a tune I just used to, as I was walking around the property here, I'd see some, you know, a bobcat or a mountain lion or a bear or a herd of elk or something, and I would go, "Hey, look at you," and I'd laugh. And then one day I thought that's kind of a nice little phrase, so I wrote a tune called "Hey, Look at You." It goes like this. You stare at the sun and you'll probably go blind. Race with the moon and you'll soon fall behind. Playing with fire, you'll surely get burned. But I take my chances. Guess I'll never learn. You walked in that room and no one can deny. All eyes are upon you. No need to ask why. There's something about you I can't look away. With no hesitation, I only can say, hey, look at you. Hey, look at you. Hey, look at you. So fine. You're out on that dance floor. I love how you move into the moment. You're into the groove, beckoning to me. Your arms open wide, with no hesitation. I'm here by your side. Hey, look at you. Hey, look at you. Hey, look at you. So fine. So fine.
Great job.
It's very fun to have this little box because when it records and stuff, it's like having a little band of my own, you know, and not only that, but everybody in the band makes the rehearsal on time, which is nice, you know.
Yeah, that's very true.
So that was a little love song called Hey Look. I don't write a lot of love songs, but I wrote that one. Hey, look at you.
And that's great.
Beautiful stuff.
Can you tell me who were some of your influences, James?
Absolutely. I was first influenced, I'm talking 50, 53, 54 years ago, by the Kingston Trio, and then by the Beatles and Bob Dylan and Simon and Garfunkel, specifically Paul Simon. I think when I look back over my career and the albums I've recorded and the songs I've written, as much as the aforementioned artists influenced me, the one who influenced me the most was Paul Simon because of the depth, the meat, and the intellect he brought to his lyrics, and the poetry of it, And then his albums were always impeccably made, and I aspire to that. So I think of all the artists that I have been influenced by, and there's no getting around it. You're influenced by everyone you hear.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul Simon, I try to carry on the tradition of his solo albums prior to Graceland, because there's no way one guy with a guitar can emulate Graceland. But of his previous albums, I think you'll find I tried to bring the same sensibilities to the recording process and to the composing process and to the performing process that he has brought.
And
Yeah.
you do.
As a matter of fact, a little later I'll do one. What, beg your pardon, Warren?
I said, and you do a great job of that.
Oh, thank you. You know what? I'll do a song of his right now. I usually do this. I've done this song, actually the opening of every set I've done since Putin installed Trump. I've done this song every night, first song. I started out with a little instrumental piece that was actually written by my friend Leah Kunkel, a wonderful singer-songwriter and one of my dearest friends. I start with that, and then I go into Paul's song, which you'll recognize instantly, I hope. Many's the time I've been mistaken, many times confused. Yes, I've often felt forsaken and certainly misused. But I'm alright, just weary to my bones. Still you can't expect to be bright and bon vivant with a con man on the throne. There's a con man on the throne. I don't know a soul who's not been battered. Don't have a friend who feels at ease. Don't know a dream that's not been shattered or driven to its knees. But I'm alright. We've lived so well, so long. Still, when I think of this road we're traveling on, wonder what's gone wrong. I wonder what's gone wrong. And I dreamed I was dying. I dreamed that my soul rose unexpectedly, and looking back down at me, smiled reassuringly. And I dreamed I was flying, and high up above my eyes could clearly see the Statue of Liberty sailing away to sea. And I found I was crying. We come on the ship they call the Mayflower. Come on the ship that sailed the moon. We come in the age's most uncertain hour, and sing this American tune. But I'm alright, alright. No one's forever blessed. Still tomorrow's gonna be another working day. We can only do our best. Have we really done our best?
Excellent.
Thank you. That applause sounds like laughing, doesn't it?
Yeah. Good job. Can I ask you, what kind of guitar are you using there?
Yeah,
James?
I actually have a more. I'm so ridiculously blessed. I have many guitars, and the one I'm playing today is a beautiful 1995 Collings D2H, which is a herringbone inlay on a D28. And Collings makes guitars. They're in Texas, in Austin. They make guitars like Martin used to make them pre-war. Like the bracing in this is pre-war Martin, and the top is Adirondack spruce, which they don't use anymore. They use Sitka spruce now at Martin. And this is Brazilian rosewood, and they use Indian rosewood now. So this is a very special guitar. And it was given to me by a fan, to tell you the truth. He said I was his favorite guitar player, and he had a heart attack and could no longer play his guitar. And his name was Will Osborne. And he said, you know, I'll loan you the guitar until I pass away, and then you can have it. And I said, okay. So I used to come back from the road, and I call him, hey, Will, it's James. How you feeling? You know. He said, the only way I'll loan you this guitar is if you take it on the road, because the guitar this great should not be in a closet. So that's what I did. I took it on the road every gig until Will passed. And I also have a beautiful Martin D28 that I love very much. And I have a Taylor 810 CE, which is my road guitar. It's one of the easiest guitars I've ever played. Sounds terrific. And Taylor is very good to me. They're a great company, and they're very supportive. They sent that guitar up to me. I ran into this guy named Bob Borbonis in Chicago, and he said, what kind of guitar are you playing? And I told him. He said, you should be playing a Taylor. And I said, well, they should give me one then. And he said, okay, what's your... And I went, what? And I got home from the road 2 weeks later, and he called me, and a guitar was shipped up. I mean, it wasn't free, but it was at a wonderful price. And I said, what if I don't like it? And he said, well, then send it back, and we'll just keep sending guitars till you find one you liked. And the first one they sent me was the Taylor 810 CE, and I thought, this guitar is fabulous. So I just kept it, and I paid them hardly any money at all, considering what the guitar is worth.
Wow, you were definitely blessed.
Yeah. I have a 1969 Strat
Wow.
Fender, and I have a Washburn, and I have a 1941 Gibson J50, and I have a guitar made for me by the luthier David Russell Young, and I also have a Guild Classical, and I
Right.
have, oh yeah, you can see it. I have like a 75-year-old Favilla ukulele up there.
Hmm.
That was the first.
That's about what I can play.
That's the first thing I ever played. That is the very guitar that ruined my life. If it wasn't for that ukulele, I could have been a doctor. You know what I mean? But
I wouldn't say it ruined your life.
no, really.
Well, I really appreciate this personal concert you're putting on for all us fans.
Well,
And
it's my joy, and it was so fun when I went out to to Peter Tork's memorial in February, and got to meet so many people. I was astounded at how many Monkees fans were familiar with me and my work. It was very, it touched me. You know, it was very gratifying because I didn't know that they knew about me. You know, it was nice.
right.
So thank you to all you guys out there. I sure appreciate it. Let me do another tune from Without Susie, okay?
Okay.
This is in keeping with the same spirit as as the last song about our country. I, I wrote this song. It's kind of a protest song, but I realized that you can't write songs that are negative protest songs because the only people that listen to them are the people that already agree with you. So you're not making any progress, you know. So I thought I've got to write a protest song that is provocative and encourages people to think, you know. So I wrote this little tune. This is called Dark Road. Heading down that dark road. There's no telling where we're going. Something in those shadows doesn't seem right to me. Heading down that dark road, right in line are all I see. One side or the other lies between you and me. Taking a look around, can't believe what I think I see. Taking a look around, is this the best that we can be? Is this the best we can be? Heading down the dark, need a spark to light the way. No sense of direction, still we spend another day. Heading down that dark road, seems we got a lot to lose. Coming to a crossroad, which way will we choose? Taking a look around, can't believe what I think I see. Taking a look around, is this the best that we can be? Is this the best we can be? Everybody knows bound to reap, we're bound to reap what we sow. We're gonna reap what we sow. Taking a look around, can't believe what I think I see.
Great. Great job. James, you have a new CD coming out. Can you tell us the name and
Yeah,
where?
it's actually out, Warren. It came out, let's see, this is March, so I guess it came out in January. And
Okay.
it's getting some play at radio. And I was going to be touring all through April and May and June to support the release of it. But I've already had the April gigs canceled. And the next gig that I have scheduled is in Camarillo, California on May 17th. And I don't know whether we'll be approaching normalcy by then. So I don't know whether that concert's going on. And in June, I'll be in the Midwest in the Chicagoland area, Wisconsin, Illinois, like that.
That's great. Can you tell people where they might be able to get
Sure.
your CD?
My website, www.jamesleestanley.com, and you can get all the CDs there. And download. You can also download the things from there. And I'm also on all those sites that everybody knows about. You know, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Pandora, even though they don't pay musicians anything. You know, the average. I read that the average what's the one in England? Pandora, or Spotify.
Yeah.
I started in England.
Right.
The average salary there is $175,000 a year, and there is no musician except for the very famous ones that are making anything like that. I mean, I'll have 1,000 plays and you know, get 28 cents. I mean, they pay the artists, which they call us the content providers, and they don't pay us anything. So I certainly appreciate getting airplay anywhere, but I do think that their paradigm for paying artists is obscene and grossly imbalanced. So you're going to download it from my site if you would. But if you're on Spotify, you can certainly or Pandora, you can certainly just go right there and listen. And I know Apple has everything of mine as well. So I'm out there all over the place. But I recommend, with regard to me and with regard to every artist you know, go to their site first, because that's where they benefit the most from the sale. And I do want to mention also that I have a blog. It's called Data Musicata, like DATA, music, ATA, Data Musicata. And it's everything that I know about what I do, how to practice, how to buy a guitar, how to string a guitar, how to tour, how to have a house concert, how to be a house concert promoter, how to be a house guest. Everything I can think of, it's there. The blog is free. There's no advertising on it. It's just something of me giving back, because I have, 50 years of doing this. I'm getting kind of good at it, you know. And my wife said, you have to give back, James. And so I created this blog, Data Musicata. Go on, there's a search engine. You put in anything you want to know about, and I've written over 700 articles for it so far. So I had to cover everything I can think of. And it's not political for the most part. I think it's almost not political at all. I do one article about how to write protest songs, but I do my political rage on Facebook.
Right. Where everybody else does. Right?
Yeah, and I also write. I've written my congressman and I've written Feinstein and Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi so much I think they know me by first name. You know.
I can imagine. That sounds like a great website there, James. Can I ask one question before you start playing again?
Sure.
You mentioned Peter Tork. Can you tell us a little bit about him?
Peter was one of my oldest friends. I think I only know one person that I've known and befriended longer than Peter. We met when I was in high school, and I remember I was playing down at Virginia Beach. I got thrown out of high school, and I was working at a club with a fake ID because I was only 17. And you weren't allowed to work in a place like that sold alcohol unless you were at least 18 in Virginia. So I had a fake driver's license that said I was 18. and I was working in this place called the Shadows at 16th and Atlantic in Virginia Beach, and all these acts were coming through. It's that summer I met Cass Elliot and Dennis Doherty and John Phillips of the Mom and Michelle of the Mamas and Papas.
Wow.
I met the famous rock photographer Henry Diltz, who at the time was the banjo player in the Modern Folk Quartet. I met Peter Tork. I met everybody that I've known for my whole life. I met that summer, you know.
Wow.
And Peter and I hit it off right away. He was there for 2 weeks, and by the end of the first week, when they had the open mic, which they called hootenannies back then for no reason that I can comprehend, he and I worked up some tunes, and we played together for the first time. This is like 1963. We played together, and then 1964, excuse me. And then it was also the summer that Hard Day's Night came out, and Peter and I saw that film together. Very fun. Wow. We came out of there, we came out of there different humans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when I went back to go back to high school, and yeah, it was 64 when I got thrown out of high school, so I take it back. Yeah, not 63. Everything is 64. And I went back and re-entered high school and finished my senior year. But when I was there, in the winter, Virginia Beach closes down. In the summer, Virginia Beach is a huge resort area. But in the winter, it was just a ghost town. Mm-hmm. And so I wanted a place to play, and I started a club called the Folk Ghetto down on Freemason Street, which was the cobblestone old town section of Norfolk, Virginia. And I opened a place called the Folk Ghetto with two pals of mine, Ron Holloman and Bruce Stanley. The three of us opened this club, and I played there the first weekend as the headliner, and then I had Brian Bowers, who's now like some kind of auto harp god, but at the time he was playing bottleneck guitar and doing Jimi Hendrix acoustically. In any event, he played there, and for Easter week, it was only open on the weekends because I was in high school. I couldn't handle it during the week. Although they did allow me to leave high school and go down to take orders and, to be there when they were delivering stuff and everything. But in any event, we had Easter week off, and I wanted to be open all week, and I wanted a really special thing. So I hired a jazz group called the Ben Ezrada's Lubas Quartet, and the sax player in there was Jim Rothermel, who played with everybody. He was Jesse Colin Young's player for years, and great dude. He's gone now. Anyway, they were the opening act, and the headlining act was a folk singer from New York City called Peter Tork.
Wow.
And this was the first time he'd ever gone out of town as Peter Tork. And this is the summer of 1965. So it was, it was Easter of 1965. So it was about 15 months before the Monkees were formed, and about 18 months before they've had that first hit. I remember I was in the Air Force when that song came out, and I thought, what? My pal has a hit record, And I went down to LA and saw him, and he was living on Rogerson Drive back then near the Hollywood sign, had this big house. It was so fun because he was just this basket house banjo playing guy, and now he was like one of the Monkees, And what was weird is that by the time the Monkees were really famous, I was a Chinese linguist in the Air Force, so I was in Taiwan for the entire time the Monkees were a big deal,
Wow, you didn't get to see him much then.
I didn't see him at all during that entire thing. I saw him before. I came back on emergency leave, and I did get to see him, but I only saw him for like an hour, and I was in LA for a minute. I went, rented a car, went to see him, and then I went back down the airport and flew back to China, So in any event, I didn't get to experience him in that Monkees thing. And I have to tell you that I didn't really, because I've known him so long and because he was such a close friend, I never thought of him as a celebrity. And it was his passing that made me realize how world famous he was. I didn't know. As a matter of fact, if I had known it, I would have taken advantage of it, but I didn't even think of him that way. I thought, he and I were just buddies, and he was, not only one of my best friends, but one of the most generous friends I've ever had. He was a great dude, and I know that after he passed, I started doing Daydream Believer at the end of my shows, just as a nod to Peter. And the first couple of times I sang it, I couldn't get through it. I got too torn up.
Right.
But now I can play it.
All right. Could you play that for us?
I was going to do it at the end of the whole set, but
Okay. No, you can
Play it
save
later.
You can save it for the end.
okay. I mean, we're doing about 40 minutes already. So how long do you want this to go, Bob?
Uh,
As long as you want to go.
Oh, okay. Well,
I'm
let's see.
sitting here just loving every minute of it, so don't think we're like, you want to keep playing, I'm going to keep listening like everybody else.
Oh, since how we were talking about that, I'll do that song for you. Okay.
James, you can play for me all night if you want. I'll sit here and listen to every minute of it.
Okay. Here comes oh, I could hide neath the wings of a bluebird as she sings. 6 o'clock alarm would never ring, but it rings and I'll rise, wipe the sleep out of my eyes. Another day, who knows what it will bring. Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a dream believer and a homecoming queen? Oh, you once thought of me as a white knight on his sleeve. Now you know how happy we could be, and our good times start and end without $1 to spend. But tell me, how much do we really need? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen? Cheer up, sleepy Jean. Oh, what can it mean to a daydream believer and a homecoming queen?
All right.
You know what?
had
Every
me.
time I sing that song, the audience just joins in. You guys didn't sing.
You're
I was
lucky.
I was singing. I just didn't want anybody to hear.
Oh, well,
Better when you sing.
music's in everybody, man. You'd have been welcome.
You don't want to hear me sing. I'll start chasing all your fans away. It's great.
Yeah,
I
That was
love it.
beautiful, that version.
Yes, it was.
it's a wonderful song. You know that I used to be friends with John Stewart, who wrote it, and he said that he sat down one day out there. He was living in Point Dume, and he sat down. And he said, "I'm going to spend the whole day writing songs," and so he spent the whole day. And at the end of the entire day, he only had one song, and he felt really bad. He said, I thought, geez, the only thing I got out of this was Daydream Believer, not one other song.
If I could only have that song, I'd take it.
You're kidding? It's a wonderful tune. I did
Yes.
change a couple of the words. I never liked the line about shaven razor's cold and it stings. I thought I just didn't like that line, so I changed it to another day who knows what it will bring, which I thought was more in keeping with Daydream Believer.
Right.
I thought so. I hope John doesn't mind, but he's gone. So what's he going to do? Haunt me? I think I'll be all right.
I think your version was great. You have any more monkey songs?
No, I don't do. I just do what I write.
Right. Yeah, that's
Except
great.
for, uh, except for I do that Paul Simon tune, and then I do that song for Peter. Otherwise, I think I have one other song I didn't write that I do, but it's called "It's All in the Game," and I haven't done it in years. So I just do whatever. I'm sorry, Warren, that I can't accommodate you.
And yeah, no, it's okay. I think you're a great songwriter, and I like to listen to some more of your songs.
Well, I do have 34 albums, so I've got some.
I got time to sit here and listen to them all.
Okay, I'll play.
Can I ask a question before you
No,
do the next one? I know
yeah.
you said you did a record and John Densmore and then Robbie Krieger asked to join in. And I was
Oh,
just wondering, I've never known you'd done that, and I'm dying to hear it. Could you do
oh,
one of
sure,
the songs that you recorded with them?
sure. I did an album with my pal John Batdorf called All Wood and Stones, and XM Records. I mean, XM Radio called it the record of the year. They loved it, and afterwards, I had occasion to meet John Densmore, and I brought John Densmore is the drummer in the Doors. I brought the book that he wrote called Riders on the Storm. I brought the book just so John would sign it. And when I met him, I said, "Hi, James Lee Stanley," and he said, "Hey, man, I love that thing you did to the Stones." And I was like, "What?" I couldn't believe that John Densmore knew I was on the planet, let alone he liked my music. And so we sat down, we had lunch, and he said, "Listen, if you do the Doors like you did the Stones, I'll play on it." And I said, "Well, duh, I'll do it. So I got
Really?
another pal of mine named Cliff Everhart, and we put together an album of Doors songs called All Wood and Doors. The premise is we do acoustic versions of the tunes of rock songs, and they're not done faithfully. They're changed so that, as if the guys writing the songs were folky guys from Southern California. So here's a tune off of the All Wood and Doors album. There's All Wood and Stones, there's All Wood and Stones 2, there's All Wood and Doors, and I just finished with my pal Dan Navarro, All Wood and Lead. We did all Led Zeppelin tunes,
Wow.
but like I wrote them, or like Dan wrote them. Anyhow, here's the tune from the Doors. Let's
Hey,
see. Let's swim to the moon. Let's climb through the tide. Penetrate the evening that the city sleeps so high. Let's swim out tonight, love. It's our time to try. Park beside the ocean on our moonlight drive, moonlight drive. Let's swim to the moon. Let's climb to the tide. Surrender to the waiting world. The daylight tries to hide. Northern love open. Northern to the sun. Step into that river on our moonlight drive, moonlight drive. Let's swim to the moon. Let's climb through the tide. Reach your hand to hold me, but I can't. you glide, falling through the forest on our moonlight drive, moonlight drive. Let's swim to the moon, let's climb through the tide. You reach your hand to hold me, but I cannot be your guide. Easy, I love you as I watch you glide, falling through the forest on a moonlight drive. Oh, come on, baby. Come on, take a little ride. Down, down, down by the ocean side. We're gonna get real close. Yeah, we're gonna get real tight. Down, down, down by the ocean side. Down by the ocean side.
What is there to say there, James? I think you are great. Your music is off the charts, and I really appreciate it.
You really brought a lot out in like Daydream Believer and Moonlight Drive. It's amazing, like with one instrument, how you evoked so much. When the other guys had a band behind it, I thought that was an incredible version just now. I love it.
Playing solo, for half a century, and I really think that's where all these. I mean, for our generation, that's where all these songs came from. One guy and one guitar, or two guys and two guitars sitting in a room. You know what I mean? This was the nascency of everything, right. And I just, I mean, my records, are fully produced, and sometimes, like on the latest one, Without Susie, I played everything, but most of the time when I go out on the road, I go by myself and I try to recreate. I try to make it like a guitar orchestration of it, so that it doesn't seem like the band is missing, And
it sure didn't seem missing on that. It was beautiful.
Yeah, so far no one's mentioned, "Hey, where's the band?" So it's yeah, and I do like, what, when I write songs or when I make arrangements, here's what I like to do, man. I like the words to be able to stand by themselves as a poem, and I like the melody to be able to stand by itself as just an instrumental, and I like the guitar part to be able to be on its own as a solo guitar piece. And I try to combine the three of them, so that
you accomplish that with ease. It's something to listen to.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes, you do that.
I'm going to do I'll do just a couple more for you, okay? And then we'll call it a day.
All right, that sounds great. Thank you.
This is not yet, but soon.
Right.
This is a tune off of my Backstage at the Resurrection album. Yeah, it's called I Can't Cry Anymore. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. Oh, a lot of tears. What do people say? not hung out to dry. Because to you the truth, it's just an understood dead lie. And I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. Oh, a lot of tears. Well, the kindest thing that you could have done was to cut me loose before we got begun. But to use my love, just like it was a safety net, just a place in case. Ooh, that's cold as you can get. And I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. Oh, a lot of tears. Well, the kindest thing that you could have done was to cut me loose before we got begun. But to use my love, just like it was a safety net, just a place in case. Ooh, that's cold as you can get. And I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. Oh, a lot of tears. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. I can't cry anymore. Oh, a lot of tears.
All right. Great job.
Very pretty.
I love that applause. That's so funny.
All right,
Okay.
James. Since this is a Beatles related show, I have to throw in a Beatles question for you.
Sure.
Do you have a favorite Beatles song, and have you ever met any of them in person or performed with any of them?
Never performed with them. I did get to meet and hang out with Ringo a little bit when I guess Harry Nilsson was doing something at RCA when I was on RCA, and Harry and I were managed by the same manager, and so I went to this recording session party function thing, and Ringo was there, and he was just as gracious and delightful as he could be.
Mhm.
And another time, I was in the studio finishing my second album, and it was like about 3 o'clock in the morning, in Hollywood. And all of a sudden, this intern comes running in. He goes, James, Harry Nilsson's in the lobby. He wants to talk to you. And I said, oh, no problem. I acted like this happened all the time, But in fact, I was thrilled out of my mind that Harry was there, So I went out in the lobby and I said, hey, Harry, what's happening? And he puts his arm around me and he goes, hey, James, I got Lennon in the limo. We're looking for some blow. And I said, wow. And I'm thinking to myself, John Lennon is outside in the limousine 20 feet from me. I mean, I thought Harry could hear my heart going this. So excited. And so I put my Harry and we're walking towards the limo and I'm going, I'm going to meet John. Well, I'm saying, I'm trying to think, blow. I can't help you. I'd love to help you, but I have no clue how to get you any cocaine, but anyhow, we get, and we're now at the limo and the window goes down like that. And Lennon leans forward. I can see his little sharp beak and he goes, so what's the story? And Harry says, he hasn't got any. And I stick out my hand because I'm thinking Harry's going to say John Lennon, James Lee Stanley. And I'm not kidding. I stick out my hand as Harry gets into the limo and the door closes and they drive off. And I'm sitting there with my hand out. I'm thinking, well, I guess that's as close as I'm getting to Lennon,
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Yeah. And you know what I found out later, man? I was playing in England. Peter and I did a tour of England. And during the visit, I went to my relatives, the Stanleys. My dad gave me a book of Stanleys that goes back to 1120. So I wanted to look up my relatives to see if I knew anybody. It turns out that John Stanley was the 18th Earl of Derby, and one of his relatives was a woman named Julia Stanley. She was a distant cousin. And Julia Stanley was the mother of John Lennon. So wow. John Lennon and I are actually distant cousins, but I never knew that. If I'd known that when I was in high school, cheerleaders would have done things to me, but as it was, I didn't know it, and now John's gone.
Wow. So you're related to John Lennon.
Yes. Yeah, we're cousins.
That is great. Yeah, that's.
When I found out, I told my sisters that I was related to John Lennon, but they weren't.
Now stick the knife in, right?
Darn right.
Yeah, all right. You got anything more for us?
Yeah, I was going to do one more tune for you.
All right.
This is a song it's an instrumental. It's called Harris Creek Shuffle. And it's a tune that I actually wrote in the dressing room at a concert series called Harris Creek in Newport News, Virginia. And it was the first tour that Peter Tork and I went on. And up in the dressing room, I wrote this tune. And then later on, a couple of years later, I was producing Peter's blues band, Shoe Suede Blues. They were in my studio, which was in LA at the time. And they were late getting there. So I got out the guitar and I started writing a second part to this instrumental. And I wrote that and recorded it while I was waiting for Peter to get there with the band. And so whenever I play this, I think of Peter because, he was right there for the nascency of it. And I was waiting for him when I wrote the B section. So, Harris Creek Shuffle. play with these machines, I gotta tell you.
All right, James, I got a couple of things for you here. First of all, I'm going to give you my condolences to your friend Peter Tork, and he shall live on through people like you, James.
I sure hope
And,
so.
Here, here.
and thank you for coming on the show. It was fantastic, and your guitar playing is top notch.
Thanks.
And
Absolutely.
And the last thing is, if you like to do a little commercial for your new CD,
Oh, that's a good
that
idea.
that I will post separate, you can do that at the end of the show here.
Okay. That would be a nice thing to do, and I appreciate it, Warren. I'll do it.
No problem. And one more thing, can you please give Beatles Magazine a big shout out for me?
Sure, sure. Beatles Magazine. Big fan of the Beatles my entire life. I'm really glad you're out there doing what you do, man. Please keep it up.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate that. That was great.
Good, good.
And Bob, you got anything to add?
I was just stunned by the concert. Your guitar playing is extraordinary, and when you brought out, the songs that had whole bands behind them, your arrangement struck me. Especially the cover of the Door song gave me chills.
Thank you, Bob. I'm glad that you enjoyed it, and thanks for inviting me, man. I mean, you're the reason that we're doing this, so thanks for putting it together. Warren, thanks for your technology.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And your host, I
And
appreciate it.
for all of our listeners, please go to James' website, orders his CDs.
Yeah, that's
So
www.jamesleestanley.com in case you forgot.
you got it. I thank you very much. Support our musicians, please.
Yes, I would love it.
Thank you.
Thank you all.